Hi everyone, Whole Heart Wiley here. Thanks for tuning in. Want to acknowledge you're showing up for yourself. You're here. The title said personal self inventory and you clicked in. So I just want to honor that for you. It is hard to look at ourselves sometimes, but you're here and you're showing up for yourself. And I'm going to give you some helpful information about how you can start looking at yourself and your life and figuring out where you are so then we can strategize where you would like to go. So, the first and primary relationship is always to self. Before we can look outwardly at our relation to others or how we're navigating or showing up in the world, we really have to circle it back around to self. And so that's really what the personal inventory is all about. It's sitting down with our journal or with our note app and answering some difficult questions to figure out what in our life is working and what in our life may not be working, so that we can then decide what things we would like to let go of and what things we would like to either add or improve or add more into our lives. So, all right. So the first thing is really sitting down and asking yourself, what areas of my life am I wanting to improve or transform? And sometimes it's really helpful to put these into categories or buckets. So that could look like looking at our health, looking at our career, looking at our money habits, looking at our relationships, looking at our self-care practices or lack thereof. This could be also any kind of avoidance strategies or coping strategies that we have. Oftentimes those are what we would maybe deem negative, and that could also include any kind of addictions. And it doesn't have to be addictions to substances. There are many different kinds of addictions. We can be addicted to toxic relationships or drama dynamics in relationships, or overworking, or there's lots of different ways we do this. And I will make a video about this down the road for more clarity, but just really looking at the ways that we're avoiding or coping in ways that don't serve us. Okay. The second thing is asking yourself what do you believe prevents you from making these changes in your life? Because oftentimes we know the things that aren't working because it's very glaringly obvious for us. And yet we seem to remain in these similar type patterns. Now, that's usually because of our subconscious programming or our limiting beliefs or core stories, which many of us are very unaware of because they are in our subconscious or unconscious part of our mind. But I think it's worth asking ourselves on a conscious level, what ways do we know that we're not, what actions we're not taking, or what is preventing us from doing that? Because I think there's going to be some things that come up consciously that can help, point us in the right direction. The third thing I would ask you to do is sit down and write what are the things, and I use that in quotations, things that are serving me, and what are the things that are not serving me in my life. And really write out those things for yourself. It's really important to be honest, and because nobody's going to see this but you, and also to to come at it from a place of curiosity and kindness to self versus judgment and criticism, because you're here, these things aren't serving you or they're not working in your lives, and so you're trying the best you're able to understand how these dynamics might be playing out in your life or how you can shift them. But we can't change anything that's outside of our awareness. We have to bring those subconscious beliefs or patterns or stories, we have to bring them into our conscious awareness. Now, some of this happens through healing work. And one of the healing modalities that I employ is inner child healing work. And really, that's just talking about the parts of us that, that potentially self-sabotage us, or the parts that create the resistance, that are creating a dynamic for us that makes it so that we aren't able consciously to make these changes, because these are patterns that are running on a subconscious level. So sit down, take some time, write some of these things out. And then you really need to ask yourself, doing more of a vision casting. Well, what would I like instead? So we know now, here's the baseline, here's where we are. And so instead of looking at all the things we don't want or the things that we're not wanting to engage in any longer, we really then want to shift it in. So what would we like instead? What are the things that, if they shifted in my life, or if it looked like this, would feel like the improvement that you're seeking or the transformation that you're seeking? So list some of those items out for yourself. I think then one of the last questions I would have you ask is, what am I avoiding or putting off? And this is really getting at some of the inner resistance that we may have. Because a lot of times we know the things we'd like to change, and yet when we embark on changing those things, then we have all this resistance coming up that prevents us from actually making those changes, or from looking at or doing the work required in order to shift some of those patterns or beliefs or narratives in our lives. The last thing I really wanted to talk about is one of my mentors, who is also on YouTube, and you should go check him out. His name is Eric French, and he is at Empathy Knows. But he used to talk a lot about being in integrity with self. And the way he described this was being at high noon. So whenever we're looking at different things in our lives, we always want, as best we're able, to be at high noon, which means that we're in alignment. So what we say we want for our lives, how we want to show up, who we want to be, how we want to relate to other people, those are all the things that would be our high noon, like our ideal self. And then how we show up day to day, we look at that in relation to, am I at high noon? Or in other words, am I in alignment with self? Or am I in integrity with myself? I think it's really worth sitting down and writing out a list. And I've personally revisited this recently, and it's quite, it can be quite insightful. Writing out a list of, I know I'm in integrity with myself or in alignment with myself when, and then list out all the things. So I'm going to give you some examples. For me, it's having a bedtime and a wake time. So I know that I need rest and charge my body, but oftentimes I won't go to bed on time because I am doing things around the house, or doing things the next day for my children, or working, or whatever it might be. I'm trying to get everything done. And so I've made a commitment to myself that I would like to make sure that I am getting enough rest, quality sleep, because it's so important. And yet I find myself, when my alarm on my phone goes off, turn it off, and I just continue working or doing whatever it is I'm doing. So that would be an example. I mean, it could be anything. And it really can be empowering to look at this list. Now, I think if this is difficult for you, I think you can start on the other end, and you could actually make a list of, I know I'm not in an integrity or an alignment with myself when. So for me, those things would be like when I am consuming too much caffeine, or I am not allowing enough alone time or recharge time for myself, when I get very overstimulated and I kind of go into more of a frantic energy around getting things done. I lose my center. So, just list out those things that feel in integrity with self, and the things that you're not in integrity with self. And then you can really use those lists as a jumping off point also to answer some of these other questions. Keep in mind that anytime that we're trying to take a look at ourselves, sometimes one of the ways we avoid that work or the resistance is we tell ourselves that it's not important, or we watch a video and we listen, but we don't embody the information. Meaning that you will watch this video, you will resonate with the information, you will think about it in your head as we're going through these things, but you won't actually sit down and write these things out. That's resistance, that's avoidance, and that is something that's keeping you stuck. So, and especially in midlife, because I'm in midlife, and I have been very transparent that I'm on my own healing and transformation journey. Life's busy, and a lot of times I can make a lot of excuses for why not. But it's so important that we're making a commitment to self. And it doesn't have to be a huge commitment, but it does have to be a daily commitment. And so this is one of the ways that we're going to show up for ourselves with love and kindness and curiosity. And we're just going to take a look at, where am I now? And the last thing I want to say is it's really important to maintain an energy of playfulness and lightheartedness in all of this. Sometimes we get very serious about healing work and it can feel heavy. But the more we're able to keep it in more of a light and engaging, curious energy, just, reminding ourselves that it doesn't have to be hard, it doesn't have to be difficult, it doesn't have to be scary. I mean, we can feel all those things, but the story we tell ourselves around our healing journey is really important. So I would encourage you to tell your story that it's simple and it's easy and it's intuitive, and that our body, our brain, our spirit, we all want to be in alignment and we are seeking balance, homeostasis. And so healing is natural. It is a natural result of looking at some of these things and becoming more in alignment with ourselves. And so it's not that we're trying really to change anything. I mean, we use some of that language, but really it's that we're trying to reintegrate into a whole and healed human. And so it can be a fun journey. We have to learn how to enjoy the process because, as I mentioned, we don't ever get there. And so we just want to look at this as we're building skill sets, and that, the more we do these things, the easier they will feel. And the more lighthearted and playful we come at things, the less serious and, the less constriction we'll have. We want expansion. We want growth when we're teaching children new skill sets. Children learn best when they feel engaged or when there's playfulness or when it seems fun. So if you can, and your inner child is no different. So if you can make this in some way fun or exciting, or when you sit down with this list, just do the whole thing. Light your candle, get your herbal tea, I don't know, put on your slippers that are nice and warm and comfortable, sit by the fireside if you have one, whatever it is. Or put on some sound bowls. That's one of my personal favorites to really help me and my energy come back into resonance. So make it a significant moment. This is the moment where you're really looking at yourself and deciding, this is where I am. So then we can move towards, this is where I want to be, how I'm going to come back into alignment and wholeness with self. So take care, guys. I will talk to you next time.